Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host, Anthony Gamer, and I am Humphrey the Wolf. And might I add that I was requested for this episode. I don't know if you were requested. One of the fans, one of your fans, missed you and asked where you were. Oh, yes, jolly good. Thank you, one and all, those that are members of the Cult of Humphrey. The Cult of Humphrey, man. Anyway, today's episode we're going to be discussing games that were based on literature. Many of you that have known me for years know that I am a teacher. My original major was in English, and my area of study was Victorian literature. Oh, yes, and as I am British, I am the most qualified of all the other puppets to be the co-host on today's episode. Okay, anyway, so today we're going to discuss some games that are based on literature. And as a teacher myself, some of these games, not all of them, some of them, could be some pretty good supplementary assignments that you might like to give to your students if there are any other teachers watching this video. Oh yes, jolly good. But not all of them. Some of them have no educational value at all, and they are just simply inspired by some pieces of literature. Exactly. But if you're a teacher and you watch these videos, you'll see which games that you might want to supplement. And of course, many of the games today are from the Apple IIe computer, which was a great educational tool back in the day when both Humphrey and I were young. And like many of the viewers on my channel, it was probably the very first computer you ever worked with. Oh yes. So without further ado, let's get into the games. Are you ready? Oh yes, I'm ready whenever you are. Alright then. And our first game is Macbeth. This is a text adventure game. Of course, Macbeth is one of Shakespeare's plays. That's right, and it's actually a play that my wife, a retired teacher, taught for many years and probably one of her favorites. You get right in the midst of the entire story of Macbeth and Macduff and all those other amazing characters. Really a cool game. It's text-based, kind of similar to Lost in the Caribbean. That's about the best way I can describe it. Very good supplementary assignment for students who are reading Macbeth, and for those of you that are fans of the play, I think you really will enjoy it. Many of you are familiar with Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland and the sequel in Alice in the Looking Glass. Well, there actually was a game based on that amazing novel, and you're looking at it here. It is part of a classic series that came out for the Apple IIe computer. This one is not exactly a side-scroller. It's more of solving puzzles and basically trying not to get the characters too angry at you. If you're familiar with the book, not the Disney movie, you should be okay in this game. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a well-known science fiction novel, as well as a radio show. It later became a movie, a limited-run series, etc., etc. It's very well-known, especially in the United Kingdom. Oh, yes, it truly is. And there was a text-based game that was released in the 80s, around 1984, by Infocom, the company that is well-known for putting out text-based games. Now, for those of you that didn't exactly like the text-based games because maybe you didn't have much of an imagination, you could go to the BBC website for the 30th anniversary, and they had a special edition of the game on there. There were some pictures in the corner, kind of making it similar to Tales from the Caribbean. As Death in the Caribbean, I'll tell you, that game still gives me trouble. You know, I did an episode a while back where I showed how to beat it. Regardless, and that website is still up and running. So if you go to the BBC website and you'd like to play this special 30th anniversary edition of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, head right over there and play it. And let us know what you think in the comments below.
Long before there were the amazing Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogy movies that would come out in recent years, we have The Hobbit. This software adventure is quite similar to most text based games. It was released in 1982 by Melbourne House Software. In this game, you are taking on the role of Bilbo Baggins, and you are part of this group that is leaving the Shire in search of the treasure and returning the rightful king under the mountain to his and the dwarves to their kingdom. Text-based game, but I tell you, it really follows the book very carefully. So if you're looking for something that follows the book, this is definitely a game for you. Continuing on in the fantasy vein, we have Conquest of Camelot, The Search for the Holy Grail. This was released in 1990 by Sierra Online. It's a typical adventure game that you would expect from a Sierra game. This one is taking on the role of King Arthur, and you are trying to find the Holy Grail and save your kingdom. There's lots of riddles, puzzles to solve, some arcade sequences, jousting, everything that you're possibly looking for in a fantasy-based game. You've got it right here. And luckily, this was released for several computers at that time. What you're looking at is the MS-DOS version. Nine Princes of Amber tells the story of the battle for the world called Amber in the Roger Zelensky Chronicles of Amber novels. Now, if you've never read these, they're amazing. It's a kind of a combination of sci-fi and fantasy. It takes a while to explain it, but anyway, in this game, you take on the role of Corwin of Amber, the main protagonist of the series, and you are trying to rescue your home from your evil brother. Text-based game, but it's a pretty good play along for anyone who's ever read the books. And if you haven't read the books, I highly recommend it. They are just amazing. If any of you have read any of the Roger Zelensky's books, let me know about them in the comments section below. I'd really like to speak to somebody else who read the books and enjoyed them. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's creation of Sherlock Holmes is pretty much a mainstay in pop culture and has been for as long as the tales have been written. There have been several films, cartoons, references made in other films and everyday life, and you just name it. Sherlock Holmes is definitely a very quoted and well-known figure in British literature. Anyway, in this game called Sherlock Holmes in Another Bow, you take on the role of Sherlock Holmes, and your faithful companion Dr. Watson is with you, and you are on a ship, and there has been a mysterious suicide, but Holmes is convinced it's not a suicide, and now he must prove it. A text-based adventure that I'm sure you're going to like. Next, we have Swiss Family Robinson. This was also a Wyndham Classic game for the Apple IIe, and also a text-based. In this game, you take on the role of Fritz Robinson, and you are trying to rescue your family and keep them alive on this deserted island. Just like the game, the game is pretty much just like the book. If you ever read the book, this is a good companion piece, and this is one of those I think that students and people who enjoy reading the book will really enjoy playing this game. Next up, we have Theseus and the Minotaur. This was created by TSR Hobbies. Now, if you're not familiar with that company, they're now called Wizards of the Coast, and they were the people that made Dungeons and Dragons. In this dungeon crawling game, you take on the role of the Greek hero of Theseus, and you are trying to slay the Minotaur and save the princess. Much easier said than done, as the Minotaur is quite tough. Also, you can make this game as easy or as hard as you want. You can make the maze rather easy. You can make the maze small. You can make weapons, all kinds of stuff. You can customize this game to your liking. But no matter how easy you make it, you still have to beat the Minotaur. While we're on the subject of Greek mythology, we'll look at Ulysses and the Golden Fleece. This was released in 1981 by Sierra Online, and who knows adventure games better than Sierra? Nobody. In this text-based adventure, you take on the role of Ulysses, and you are going on your quest to find the Golden Fleece. A really fun game, full of twists and turns and decisions that can make or break you. If you're familiar with the story of Ulysses, you'll be okay. If not, yeah, this would be a very good game to also give to students to play along with their reading. I really think they'll enjoy it. Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island is an amazing book and definitely is one everybody should read. Well, in 1985, they made a game for it by Wyndham Classics, surprise, and this graphical adventure game, you're basically playing the novel. You take on the role of young Jim Hawkins, who gets the treasure map, and he and his friends are in search of the treasure. Really follows the book very well. Couldn't ask for a better faithful adaptation of the book to a game than you get with this. And I think the Wyndham Classics really went out of their way to make sure that they followed the books very well. So definitely a game that I think that, like the other Wyndham Classics, anyone who is familiar with the book or is reading the book and studying it would really get a lot out of this. Dune is probably one of the most well-known postmodern fantasy / sci-fi novels written, period. The series of books themselves have a very loyal fan base, and rightfully so, with these very colorful characters that you can really get invested in, and a great storyline. Really, if you haven't read the Dune books, you are really doing yourself a disservice. And out of the many games that were based on the series and the movies and the books and the comics, the most critically acclaimed one is this one that came out for the Amiga. As you delve deep into the whole story of Dune and the spices and all that. Of course, you notice that while we're talking here, I'm not really giving away a lot of the stories for some of these because I'm hoping that either you have read these, that you will be reading these stories, or you are planning on doing it sometime soon. And our final game for today is Prince of Persia, as this one is definitely been inspired by the Arabian Nights. And we're going to have an episode dedicated just to Arabian Nights games here really shortly, so stay tuned for that. In this game, you take on the role of a prince whose bride-to-be has been kidnapped by the evil vizier, and you have to rescue her in so much time. It's a puzzle platformer, and I tell you, this game is not easy, but it is so addictive. Oh, it sure is. And it's been ported out to just about every computer system and game system ever made. True, and there have been some remakes as well. You'll see what I mean. Like I said, it's not an easy game, and you're going to spend a lot of your time getting frustrated, and you want to quit, but you can't. You just got to keep going, and that is a rarity among games. But I tell you, this is Prince of Persia, and you're looking at the NES version, but it is available for just about every computer and game system made. So if you haven't played this before, you've got to check it out. In our next episode, we're going to discuss ColecoVision Lost Media.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Give us a great big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when I upload new episodes. Also, connect with us on all our social media platforms and check out some of my Kahoots and my Jeopardy labs. You'll find those in the description below. Also, please consider becoming a Patreon for this channel. We got some cool episodes on there that you're not going to find anywhere else, especially not on this channel, on our regular channel, that is. Oh yes, you'll have episodes about band games, adult games, some cool music videos, all kinds of cool stuff on our Patreon only page. That's correct. It doesn't matter what level of a patron you are, you will have access to all the extra stuff. So please be generous and help us out on Patreon. It's greatly appreciated. Well, until next time, I'm Anthony Gamer, and I am Humphrey the Wolf. We wish you a great week. Until we see you again, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. See you soon. Bye. Goodbye, everyone.